It is once again the greatest time of the year. As I'm recording this, the brackets are not set, but as you are watching it, the brackets are probably just got set or shortly thereafter. I hopefully don't have to wait too long till I can send this thing. It is very exciting to get started once again. Our brackets are perfect. We have not wrecked them, at least not yet. Now, this video, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. It's more just to get super excited about it. If you are new to the pool, hopefully it also explains a little bit of what's going on. If you are a veteran of the pool, it's just to remind you of a few big storylines in the men's and the women's tournaments, and then even reminding you what happened last year in our pool, because I bet you right now, if you can think about it, unless you won, you probably don't remember who did, and I feel like they should be highlighted. We'll try and keep it quick, so let's get going. More of the recap of last year I want to be for our pool, but just to remind ourselves of what happened in the actual tournaments last year. If you remember, between the men and the women's, 7 out of 8 1 seeds made it to the Final Four, which was an all-time high in numbers. The guys we'll get to in a second. Now, for the girls, the only non-number one did end up winning the whole thing, but the argument probably was maybe they should have been number one after all, although I'm sure Texas has some feuds with that. This year, I'm curious, because if you've been following along, there is definitely a favorite, and I'd say there is definitely going to be an extremely popular final if I had to predict brackets. So in those kinds of tournaments, it really comes down to, number one, are you going to go? So for UConn and UCLA, how far do you think they're going to go? And if you're going to have them in the finals, how good is your Final Four? How good is your first couple rounds? And who do you have as your Sweet 16 upsets? Because I would imagine a lot of people are going to have that, so it's going to come down to that. If not, how far do you see them going, and who do you see punching them out? That is going to be a huge determinant for our pool and the brackets, which is obviously important too. Some names you expect to hear: Strong and Fudd from UConn for sure, but I'll be interested to see, like, Michaela Blakes and how much she goes in. I mean, that's obviously, I mentioned UCLA already. Olivia Miles, I would expect to be kind of a standout for the tournament. Hidalgo is kind of funny. She was big, kind of making first team, in your rookie season and then trying to follow that along. I think that creates an interesting dynamic now that we're 2 years removed. Obviously, the biggest name we don't get to see in Juju Watkins. We see her shooting, but got to wait till next year. Even a Joyce Edwards or one of the Southern Carolina girls. Anyway, I think the storylines are pretty set up. I think the things to remember: do remember the advantages that you get when you are the higher seeds in your conferences. It is very different from the men's. You do get home court advantage in the first little bit. Do remember the slightly different issue with quarters versus halves. Not that that's a huge thing, but I do think that overall, one of the things we're going to hear a lot in this tournament that is going to be maybe a little bit annoying. I mean, we were coming off of 2 years in a row, post kind of Clark and Reese, all the stories of 2 years ago. Last year, everyone thought it would be shadowed, but the tournament actually stood out pretty well with Beckers, and obviously the WNBA having great years, unrivaled now in their second season. Unfortunately, in women's basketball, there's going to be discussions about the potential lockout/strike in the WNBA. That would be horrible for the momentum of the game, and I hope it doesn't derail this tournament. Maybe this tournament can create that kind of momentum so those people take their heads from out to their butts, realize that as owners, you got to make a deal right now and actually get their players to walk in, because right now the momentum is there. I think we're going to see a great tournament. You really can't let it go to waste. On the men's side, we had 4 number ones for the first time in a while last year. I normally make fun of the brackets that do that for lack of creativity, and you just threw it right back in my face last year, because those were obviously the brackets that got paid out. This year, I'm curious. I don't anticipate a redo, but we don't know the number ones yet as the time I'm making this, but there have been some favorites throughout the year. I mean, you're not going to be shocked to see the Michigans and the Arizonas and the Dukes. ISU will be an interesting one, and Iowa teams in general will be interesting. I say that realistically because I just finished watching shortly before recording this. Arizona hit a buzzer beater against ISU to knock them out of the conference tournament. Speaking of conferences, I don't know how mid our mid-majors might be. It wouldn't shock me, and again, we'll know by the time this video is out. Maybe I shouldn't even talk about it. Wouldn't shock me if there's not that many mid-majors, and if we're very power conference heavy, especially now that they've all gotten amalgamated. I guess we'll see. I mentioned Iowa before. It'll be super interesting because ISU, we're going to make it, looks like, and again, we don't know, but Iowa is supposed to make the tournament. And we know for the first time in a little while, Northern Iowa upset in their tournament. So for all the Iowans in the world, you're going to have to split your cheering squad, or we'll see how they get lined up and how many times they have to face each other, if ever. On the guys' side too, there's always that interesting kind of push with who is getting the NBA hype and who makes the NBA hype. Right now, there seems to be a fairly consensus top three. Dibansu for BYU, who may or may not really have a huge impact in this tournament or / make it a whole lot. I'd say Peterson from Kansas is very divisive because sometimes he plays and sometimes he just kind of seems to take some time off, and yet we know the NBA is his future. I think Cam Boozer could really cement, he's supposed to be a top three now, and if Duke has a big tournament, maybe this is the kind of thing that pushes him higher. But I'm more interested in those kind of mid-tiers, supposed to be first rounders, because you know there's a few guys here who can shoot the lights out, who can play some great down low defense, and if you have that standout tournament, sometimes that does push to where you end up getting drafted. Whole lots of storylines to talk about, but I got to save something for later on, so we're going to stop talking about basketball and start talking about our pools, or at least remind you who was successful last year. Just for general numbers, last year we had overall the most number of brackets, but since we've split a few years ago between men's and women's, the men's brackets have gone down a bit. I think we went as high as 88 one year. Now there were 75 men's brackets last year and 30 women's. Usually we increase year by year in terms of total, so we'll see how we do this year. I mentioned that just because prize pools are a little bit more split because of that. We went top 3 for women's, top 7 for men's, plus men's do have the regional winner just in case. So look at the actual website if you're curious where you lay there. In terms of our winners, we actually had some pretty eventful ones as it goes for this pool. On the men's side, we had our first third generation, and it went kind of backwards. We had the aunt win a couple years ago in Jackie, and then 2 years ago, the granddaughter in Penny, and then the grandfather, the patriarch of the side, John Strecker, took it home last year with his first ever win. There was a few other people on the board that were either repeat money winners or actually not many former actual pool winners, so it was nice to kind of divvy that one out. On the women's side, we had another fairly eventful one as this pool goes. We know there is only one two-time men's winner, and that's Kevin Horst. Have to say his name every single year until someone else does it. But we got our first dual championship winner. So we have someone who had won the men's tournament many moons ago who took down the women's. New mother, Kelly McKenna, constantly changing the definition of what it means to pull a McKenna, took home the women's last year. This year, like I said, I expect a few more brackets in each. I will always alter the payouts, but I'll save all that stuff for the website. Well, if you've listened this far, maybe you'll listen just 1 minute longer. This is my yearly begging and pleading. Now, I get it. If you're new to the pool, you like the idea of putting it into Yahoo and you can't see anyone else's bracket till tip-off and all that fun stuff. Now, if you've been in the pool a long time, you know you used to send me your bracket, so I knew what you were picking early. It does not and did not influence me then. Not going to influence me now, but it allowed me to do my write-ups early. You do not ask me to do these write-ups, and I get that, but I do think it's a fun part of the pool. I like it, and I know at least enough people like it that they send me messages about it, so I'm going to keep doing them. It is insanely helpful, though, if as soon as your bracket's done, download it as a PDF and send it to me. That way I can do your write-up right away, have as many done as I possibly can before tip-off, so that it doesn't take me 3 or 4 days to actually send out. There's nothing worse than getting the write-up when your bracket's already out. And if your champion goes down in the first round, there's not a whole lot I'm probably going to be able to do about that. But I definitely want to make sure that heading into the second round, everyone's write-ups are done. The website's out there, so it is a huge help. Thank you so much for those who feel comfortable doing it. For everybody, enjoy this. Like I said, our brackets are currently perfect. The next time I send out a video, half of us will already be devastated. So here's hoping that's not you. Best of luck, everybody, and happy madness.